Hey, I'm Jess, and this is a review of the Galaxy Diver Yacht. My husband and I spent 2 weeks on board in February of 2023, touring all around the Galápagos Islands. We did both the diving itinerary and the naturalist itinerary. This is an unbiased review. I am not being paid, nor did I get a discount on my trip. The reason I'm making this video is because my husband and I rely heavily on reviews when booking trips, but the Galaxy Diver did not have any reviews at all. I think that's probably because it was totally remodeled and relaunched as a new Galapagos touring yacht in 2022. We honestly felt like we were taking such a huge chance booking this boat without any reviews, because this really was like the trip of a lifetime for us. So I'm hoping this review will help other people make that big decision. Overall, we are so happy we decided to book this trip. It was absolutely the coolest thing we've ever done, and maybe ever will do again. Every single day, we saw something totally wild, or unexpected, or amazing. Even the days I liked the least were better than a day on any other trip we've ever done. So in this video, first I'm going to review the boat itself, then I'm going to review the diving itinerary, and then finally the naturalist itinerary. The reason we decided to book the Galaxy Diver without any reviews was because of the price. For a 1-week naturalist tour on one of the other boats we were considering, we could get 2 weeks on the Galaxy Diver, 1 week of scuba diving and a 1-week naturalist tour. Overall, it was a 5-star experience. But before I go into all the good stuff, there's only 2 bad things I want to get out of the way. First, sleeping with the rocking of the boat was surprisingly difficult, and I was told the sea conditions were really calm. We had a room on the top floor, which probably made it worse. I did ask around, and some people slept totally fine, but others did have some trouble with it. I would absolutely recommend bringing some sleeping pills. My husband has a big problem with seasickness, so we were actually advised to get a room on the top floor because of the airflow to the outside and the windows, and surprisingly, my husband did not even get seasick once. Of course, he took Dramamine every night. Hey! The only other con is that this would not be a great boat for someone who is handicapped. The stairs to the top deck are sort of like half stairs, half ladder, so if you can't climb them, this isn't the boat for you. Now on to all the fun stuff. The boat itself is excellent. One caveat is that this was my first small liveaboard, so I polled my fellow passengers who'd been on liveaboards previously, and they all agreed this was one of the best I'd ever been on, from the rooms to the food to the crew. The Galaxy Diver is a little smaller than most of the Galapagos liveaboards, holding only 12 passengers. Most Galapagos boats hold 16 passengers, and I would say the smaller group size on the Galaxy Diver was invaluable to getting individual attention. The crew consisted of 11 to 12 people, so it was literally like a 1 crew member to 1 passenger. The crew were absolutely amazing. All of them are Ecuadorian, and some were even born in Galapagos. And they told me that the owner of the company has lived in Galapagos for 30 years. The crew make up your room several times a day, and they were always ready and waiting for us when we got back onto the boat.
There's the guys waiting for us.
Our guides on both itineraries were great. However, the guides do change out and work on other boats, so you may not have the same guides we had. And they do give the guides a lot of freedom to make decisions about the daily schedule, timing, and order of events. Regarding tipping, at the end of the week, they leave envelopes in your room for tips. One of the best things about this boat is the big windows. There is nothing like getting to watch the islands go by when you're stuck inside eating or getting ready.
And this is the view out my bathroom window.
The crew were nice enough to let me take some shots of the empty rooms. The main deck room is the best one, and you should definitely book that one if you can. It's the biggest, has a big closet, little desk, and great windows to the outside. The bottom deck rooms are the second biggest, and have little porthole windows, 2 twin beds, or a big bed that looked bigger than our bed. Our room on the top deck was the smallest type, but it had a ton of storage, 3 big drawers, a sort of open closet to hang clothes with hangers, plus plenty of space under the bed. It is a double bed, which is smaller than a queen. Admittedly, I am kind of a princess, and I had a lot more luggage with me than the average person. But we moved in for 2 weeks, and we were very comfortable. The air conditioning in the room worked great, The bathroom also had a ton of storage under the sink. They provide shampoo, conditioner, bar soap, hair dryer, and even liquid hand soap, which I thought was a nice little touch, and 2 water bottles. The shower always had a ton of piping hot water, and again, I admit I take longer showers than most. It is a marine toilet, so you do have to throw your toilet paper in the trash can. Now on to the food. Everyone agreed the food was really good and there was a ton of it. It was really fresh, and a lot of it, but not all, was cooked Ecuadorian style, which is a really simple and clean cooking style. My only complaint was that a few times the fish did taste a little fishy, but nothing that would make you sick. And in fact, I have a sensitive stomach and none of the food bothered me. Breakfast is a buffet and usually has some kind of eggs, some sweeter dishes like French toast or pancakes, breakfast meat, deli meats, fresh fruit, toast, granola, cereal, and yogurt. Plus a fresh juice every morning, which was awesome. There's a little coffee and tea station, which is open all day. Lunch always started with an appetizer. Lunch was actually different for the 2 different itineraries. The diving itinerary was a buffet with lots of variety. The Naturalist Itinerary was a plated lunch with only one choice. Then dessert was served for both itineraries. Dinner again starts with an appetizer. You are given 2 options for a nicely presented plated meal. My personal favorite was probably also the most creative, which was called a tuna Wellington. And then of course you finish with another dessert.
Snack time!
Also, after every activity, if there isn't breakfast or lunch, there was a snack and a drink waiting for us.
Hot chocolate all to ourselves because everybody went in.
Now onto the itineraries. We were the only people on our boat doing 2 weeks in a row.
That's the little baby iguana. Where is he going?
I personally would not even consider a Galapagos itinerary that did not go to Fernandina Island, which you can only visit on a liveaboard. This was my favorite island, and it's where you get in the water with marine iguanas, flightless cormorants, and penguins. And doing the 2 weeks allowed us to go twice. Now I'm going to review the individual itineraries, starting with the diving itinerary. The diving itinerary was amazing, and I only have a few small critiques. It is basically ruined scuba diving for us forever, because I don't think it gets any better than this. We went in February, which is the warm season, when the water and the currents are most calm, but it is known to have less abundant sea life. Even so, we saw at least 100 hammerheads, including 1 school, at least 100 Galapagos sharks, along with white and black tip sharks, tons of white tip reef sharks, something like 10 manta rays, mobile rays, spotted eagle rays, countless sea turtles, schools of tens of thousands of fish. We played with fur seals and sea lions, saw flightless cormorants and penguins in the water, and then there was my personal favorite. We saw the marine iguanas feeding underwater. And the icing on the cake is that we saw 2 to 4 whale sharks completely out of season. Our guide said that we got really lucky throughout the whole trip, so no promises your experience will be as awesome as mine was. The crew was really on point as far as helping you get geared up, being ready to help you when you got back, and taking care of your gear before and after a dive. Most people rented gear, but we brought our own and they treated our gear very well. The dive deck itself was very spacious, and we never felt like we were bumping into other people. We had 2 amazing guides, Paolo and Jorge, who I felt very safe with, and who were amazing at spotting sea life. We were probably the least experienced divers on the trip, with just about 50 dives under our belts. I was worried about the difficulty of the dives, but we did great. Most Galapagos dive boats have 8 divers with 1 guide, but we only had 6 with each guide, which was totally invaluable. They even took pictures and videos of us and the wildlife underwater for free.
Go have fun!
The guides kept a timely and organized dive schedule without being overly stressful or militant about it. We had daily dive briefings which outlined the dive plan with diagrams that were really helpful. We started our dive days most mornings before breakfast at 6 a.m. Before the first dive, they had a little fruit and just plain toast if you needed something to eat. Then after the first dive, it was breakfast, then dive 2, then lunch, then dive 3, then a snack, then dive 4, then another snack, then dinner around 6:30. Day 1, we did a checkout dive at Mosquera, and it ended up being a nice little dive. Then we spent 3 days at Wolf and Darwin and did 4 dives per day. And for days 1 and 2, we were the only dive boat out there. And on the 3rd day, there was only 1 other dive boat, and we didn't see them the whole time. I think this might be due to the fact that the Galaxy Diver does a Wednesday to Wednesday itinerary, whereas a lot of other boats I researched did a weekend to weekend itinerary. Having the world's best dive sites all to ourselves was an experience I will never forget.
How cool that is!
Day 5, we dove Fernandina and Isabella. I was a little disappointed we only did 2 dives that day. Fernandina is super protected, and I believe boats can only spend a few hours there. It was an amazing dive, and probably my favorite. This is where you see the red-lipped batfish, the Galapagos sea robin, penguins, flightless cormorants, overly friendly sea lions, and the marine iguanas feeding. The second dive we did that day at Isabella was everybody's least favorite dive because the current was too strong and it just didn't feel the safest. This is the place to see mola molas, also known as sunfish, but the visibility was bad and unfortunately we did not see any. But some people did actually see them from the boat floating on the surface, so keep an eye out.
Hey, you can see those penguins. I just want to give a hug. Oh, you want a hug? You want a hug?
Day 6, we did 3 great dives at Cape Marshall, or what they call the City of Mantas. We probably saw 10 manta rays, as well as several mobilas and spotted eagle rays. We also saw a ton of breeding white-tip reef sharks. This was an amazing day. Day 7, we only did 2 dives, both identical and at Cousins Rock. I assume this was to respect everybody's no-fly time. It was a cool little dive site with small sea life like seahorses and frogfish, and we did see groups of like 5 spotted eagle rays all together, and several octopuses. It was a pretty chill way to wrap out the diving. That afternoon, they took us on a land excursion to hike Bartolome Island, which was fun, but very hot. Day 8, we did a quick morning land excursion to the Twin Craters on Santa Cruz, which was a really beautiful area. Then we said goodbye to our dive group and headed back to the boat for week 2. Now I'm going to review the Naturalist Itinerary.
I got a fish.
You got it?
Yeah. That was cool.
There are a ton of boats to choose from when booking a Naturalist Itinerary, and this boat does have a lot of space given to the dive deck that a regular boat would use for something like a lounge area. That being said, if you're into snorkeling, this is a great boat for that. However, I was disappointed there were no kayaks as advertised in their pamphlet. The Naturalist Itinerary was very similar to a lot of the other boats I researched. The Galaxy Diver does a full 8-day itinerary with no repeat stops. At each stop, there was only 1 or 2 other boats there, and we only ran into a few other tour groups. Our guide Jimmy was great, had a great knowledge base about the Galapagos, and he was able to answer every question I had, which was a lot. And he also took absolutely amazing videos of us and edited them together at the end of every day, all for free. But Jimmy was also a little intense. He got us on the Panga almost every morning at 5:50 a.m. We did come in February, which is the hottest and rainiest month, so being up early helped avoid the heat, and animals do cool things at dawn. But then we did have long periods of free time during the middle of the day with nothing to do. We did cancel 1 snorkel due to bad visibility, which I would have liked the option of doing anyway, just for a swim and something to do. And we also canceled 1 hike due to poor scheduling that I was a little disappointed about.
Baby hammerhead! It's so tiny!
Some of the locations we visited were absolutely amazing and only accessible via a liveaboard.
It's a very pretty hike.
This includes Fernandina Island, where I had the best snorkel of my life, with marine iguanas, penguins, flightless cormorants, and very, very playful sea lions. And we also saw probably 20 sea turtles. Other stops that I believe are only accessible via liveaboard that stood out were Tagus Cove with the beautiful Darwin Lake.
Look at the Galapagos mockingbird. I've been wanting to see one of these.
Urbina Bay, where we saw a giant tortoise in the wild, and Elizabeth Bay for an unforgettable panga ride through a mangrove lagoon. Other stops I really enjoyed included the Red Beach at Rabida Island,
Oh my god, he wants to come on the panga!
and an amazing snorkel off Floriana Island at Devil's Crown. But the 2 beach snorkels we did at Urbina Bay on Isabella and Post Office Bay on Floriana were not quite as good due to poor visibility and less wildlife. However, I was pretty spoiled by that point. Now, there were 2 stops that were not well described in the itinerary. The first stop was described in the itinerary as Isabella Island, Tintoreras, and Isabella Island, Wetlands. But really, we spent most of the day at the little town on Isabella called Via Mil. It was a really cute little town, and we did do 2 great nature walks outside the town. But I would have preferred to do something a little more remote or exotic, because you can get there by ferry. The only disappointing day was the last full day. The itinerary calls it Santa Cruz Island Highlands and Santa Cruz Island Charles Darwin Research Station. And that being said, almost all cruise itineraries go to the Charles Darwin Research Station, so this is not unique to the Galaxy Diver. But it was basically just a day in the main town of Puerto Ayora, which you can do yourself very cheaply before or after your cruise. Now, in conclusion, as far as doing 2 weeks in a row on the boat, overall I'm really happy we chose to do the 2 weeks. None of the stops in the 2 weeks were exactly the same, but some were similar.
Hello, hello, baby, baby.
Someone I met during the dive itinerary asked me if I thought the Naturalist Itinerary would be disappointing after all the epic diving that we did. And I would say maybe. The snorkeling certainly did not compare to the diving, except at Fernandina Island, where a lot of the cool stuff is close to the surface. If you scuba dive and can afford to do both weeks, I say go for it. But if you can't afford to do both, I would recommend 1 week of diving and 1 week of touring around the islands via day boats and ferries. And if you're looking to do just a naturalist liveaboard, I think the Galaxy Diver is an excellent option for the quality of the boat, the food, the crew, and the price. All right, that's it. So if you have questions, leave a comment and I will try to check back periodically and answer. And have a great trip. The Galapagos was by far the best trip we've ever been on. Oh yeah, and it might be worth mentioning that even though the wildlife is unusually friendly, there are some exceptions.
Sorry, baby. Coming at me. Okay, bye. Bye. Oh my god.